very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society.
You're in violation of secure communication procedures, Condor.
So we just went ahead and fixed the glitch.
There is no America. There is no democracy.
Our fifth objective, a new world order.
There are no nations. There are no peoples. There are no Russians. There are no Arabs. There are no third worlds. There is no West.
Right-wing conspiracy.
What do you call it when the assassins accuse the assassin?
A new world order.
Thank you for plugging in to the Stones Unturned podcast.
Well, just a second there, Professor. We fixed the glitch.
I'm your host, Professor Thomas Henry Horan.
He reads everything.
Hello there, you wonderful people. It's all about the money. Let me show you. Hi, username. Or shall I call you 47? Hi, Allard. Look at two people in the chat. Did Manny end his show? I mentioned the name. That was a terrible mistake. Let me see here. You don't need to see all that. Let's see. He said something about series finale, but I don't know if that meant another one of his series finales or it was just a series finale. I'm still subscribed, right? There it is. Streamed 6 days ago. Series finale, the 50th anniversary of Son of Sam. Was that really the series finale? Does anybody know? Have you seen his new banner image? This you have to see. Don't look at the camera. Don't look at the camera. Don't look at the camera. Oh, God bless him. Okay. So, what are we talking about? What we're talking... Okay, I think I'm going to turn... Here's the thing. The other thing is just a little too big for some people to wrap their heads around, including me. I'm up to 25,000 plus PowerPoint slides. It's a masterpiece. I think I can turn this into a book. Where are you? There you are. I thought you were over there. I think I could. What is that? Oh. I think I could turn this into a book. It's all about the money. What's all about the money? This phony baloney kingdom of Israel. It turns out I need to get a copy of the Bible so I can hold it up and say, this book is 100% true. For example, this book is 100% true. Pretend this is a Bible. This is 100% true. You just have to recognize two blatantly obvious facts. One, the dates are a little fuzzy, and you can't blame them for that. They couldn't be precise if they wanted to be, and they didn't want to be. Number two, well, one subsection A, remember, history is not about the past anyway. History is about the present. You have to understand when they wrote each of those books and what was going on and what they're trying to say. For example, this bullshit claim about this kingdom of Israel that belongs to the Ptolemies and their ilk because Isaac's real name was Israel, and that's the kingdom he inherited from Abram, who didn't actually have a kingdom. It didn't exist. David's kingdom doesn't exist. Solomon's kingdom doesn't exist, except that it does. This book, pretend this is the Bible. I'm Trump. Pretend this is a Bible and pretend this is 100% true. Do not tell me what that silly son of a gun has gotten up to today. They're just making shit up now to keep me busy, so I just ignore them. Sometimes you just have to ignore them. It's all about the money, you see, because, number one, Israel is not a boy. Israel is a girl. Lord Ishira is Lord Sarah. Sarah is the queen. of the transnational virtual nation of Israel. It's a nation with its own laws. People need those. If you want to do business, you have to do business with Israel. You can't just get on a camel and ride 4,000 miles, but you don't have to. You can just get on your wife and ride her around the corner because the camel is too valuable. I think I'm joking. And you see Ishmael, the Israelite. That is Israel. It's kind of like today. Believe it or not, France, there's a piece of French territory, right? The French embassy in New York, Washington, that's foreign territory. The cemeteries, like the American cemetery, D-Day cemeteries in France, that's American soil. It's American territory. The thing is, okay, this is why I can't pay attention to the chat. You guys, too much fun. Here's the thing you got to get your head around. It's not Prince Israel, it's Queen Sarah. There was a distinction. Some people in the land of Canaan used El for Lord, which usually meant landlord. That's where we get our expression landlord. Yahweh becomes the Lord of the Israelites. There's a complicated story that's 100% true about how this happens. He becomes a portable god. The Arabs had a portable god. It was a rock that they carried around, an unhewn stone. So this, you may be familiar with the concept. My point is this. It's Queen Sarah. It's not the kingdom of Abram. It's never called Abram or Abraham or Abraham. It's never called that. It's called the land of Queen Sarah, which is the same name as Asherah, which is the same name as Ishtar, which is the same name the Easterners will call her Inanna, the goddess of the moon. In the West, she is Isis, she is Ishtar, she is Asherah, she is the evening star. Sometimes she's also the morning star. She's not the consort of Yahweh. Yahweh is the consort of Asherah. Asherah is his Shakti. Yahweh is Etana, and Asherah is his Inanna. You get the Western version and the Eastern version. The reason there is a Western version is because it's all about the money. I'm trying to come up with a one-paragraph introduction to this book. It's all about the money. It's one sentence. It's all about the money. Here's why it matters today. Here's why bombs are falling today. Because this is all about the money. It's not spiritual and it's not allegorical, except to the extent that that was part of their concrete reality. Their Lord, which was not a human king, a god, gave them that land. Well, not everybody's going to recognize that claim. So here's the basic story. Abram and his wife, his sister Sarai. I know this sounds like a pimp. In modern terms, this is a pimp. Abram and Sarai are Jeffrey and Jelaine, and I'm not exaggerating in the slightest. But he's not pimping his wife the way Diddy might pimp, what's her name? Quite, but it's very similar. He is imitating Abram. He is marrying off his sister. These are most likely pro forma marriages. She is infertile. This would not make her a desirable wife, except that she is the sister of Abram, a very wealthy and powerful merchant, not totally unlike Muhammad and his father. I'm not saying anything. What I'm saying is the Latin translation of Muhammad is Benveniste. That's all I'm saying. If you translate Muhammad into Latin, you get Benveniste. Muhammad's not a name, it's an appellation. Not fair of face, it's the one, it's like the Greeks would say glamorous in the sense it touched by God. Muhammad had this aura. He'd been clearly touched by God, the aura of the prophet. Like when Moses returns from the desert and his face has the shining, It's translated a lot of different ways. That's the touch of the divine. Not the Romans will internalize that as the genius of the emperor, but it's the same kind of concept. So Muhammad is an epithet, not an well, it's a nickname. It describes him, and the Latin translation of that is Benveniste, which we will come to someday later on in this book. So what this book is about this legal case. Remember, this is supposed to be a law book. So it's not the Code of Hammurabi. That's just that's a Christmas list of laws. It's not a law book. The Bible's a law book. It's how to navigate all these different civilizations and their laws. The story of Abram and Sarai is completely anachronistic. It's like Titus Andronicus. It's deliberately anachronistic. It covers all places and all times. It has to. It has to. So the time when they supposedly show up, they supposedly leave Ur, the Chaldeans haven't been invented yet. And the Code of Hammurabi sounds like it shows up a lot in Genesis, but it's not completely there, and there's overlap. So since Sarai cannot have children, and since she's not really Abram's sister unless he married his sister, which would be something for Egyptian consumption, right? Remember, Sarai marries a pharaoh, right? My point is this. These are pro forma marriages. Now Pharaoh is not dealing with a dirty, inferior, hand-washing foreigner for which he would have to get some kind of tacit approval from his barons, whatever you want to call them, his priests, his bureaucrats, his stakeholders, his mother. No. Now he is dealing with a brother-in-law. That's what makes the world go round. And you read these letters, Abram or whoever, Mehmet, my brother, Shlomo, my brother. This is the fundamental business law of ethics. Equal value for equal value. There must be a meeting of minds. They must be equal minds. It must not be an adult taking advantage of a child. It must not be a competent lawyer, some shyster lawyer taking advantage of a mentally handicapped person. It must be a meeting of equal minds. It must be brother meets brother. The second thing is, it must appear to be. Both sides must feel like it's equal value for equal value. They must be honest with each other like brothers. They must deal honestly like brothers. They must both walk away still brothers. Each one should feel like he got a fair deal. This is before, during, and after. They must be brothers. This is how you do it. I'm not dealing with some filthy, hand-washing, flea-bitten foreigner. I'm dealing with my brother-in-law. You got a problem with that? No, of course not. Nobody has a problem with that. And they're legal. He's supposed to act like a brother. He's supposed to be trustworthy as a brother. And she can't have children. Otherwise, this isn't going to work. It could be a blackmail ring. See, a woman can have more than one husband. No. A man can have more than one wife. But she's not it's a pro forma marriage. It's a legal contract. Now we can do business with each other. And he does this all across the Near East. He forms a virtual empire, not of armies and citadels of his own. And he's very enterprising, and she's very enterprising about it. She is more important than he is. She's Catherine Sher. He's just the pimp. He's just the front. He's just Bill Clinton. Remember, people thought that Bill Clinton was handsome? That's what the Greeks would call glamour. They had a big debate. They portray Alexander as glamorous as they Photoshop the fuck out of Alexander so that he will appear to have glamour to the Easterners. But the Greeks believe this was an internal thing. He was touched by God, and that's the genius, the ingenious of the whoever. this matters because, as I will show you down through history, there are lots of unmarried queens, not so much of big farming plantations or mining operations. They're queens of major trading centers. The Queen of Sheba. The Queen of Sheba. Also, it's like Mary, the sister of Lazarus. Legally, she becomes not the heir with full powers. Right. This is forming a virtual nation on Camelback that takes its laws everywhere it goes because people see a value in these Israelites following their own law. They get a value from it. A standardized system of weights and measures, standard prices, standard wages. There's a real benefit to this. Consistency, predictability. The economy before this was a fire bucket hand-along. I buy 10 tons of silk from you, I keep 5, I sell 5. How in the hell? I ordered 10 bolts of silk, I got 3. They weren't stolen, they were purchased along the way. You got to solve that problem. We have this, one problem is we have an image of the ancient world as barely functioning. It was booming, it was thriving. 1300 BC. According to the number of shipwrecks, if you are an actuary, if you have any experience running actuarial, what do we call them? Not retroactive analysis. Jesus. Forget I mentioned it. There must have been at least 1,000 ships. On any given moment, there must have been a fleet of 1,000 ships of the 40-ton capacity class, whizzing, just churning around the Mediterranean and beyond. There are 10-ton shipments, 20-ton ship. They used metal partly as ballast, so you don't get a shipment of copper. What you get is you get a shipment. There's 10 tons of copper from Kupros, from Cyprus. It's sailing west towards Kupros because they're buying and selling their own copper. That's how busy this market is. And a ton of tin from Afghanistan is going west. And there's bronze, there's manufactured goods, there's all kinds of cloth, dyed and undyed. There are barrels and barrels of wine and olive oil. There are cases and cases of myrrh and frankincense and hashish and opium and cosmetics, and there's grain. There were dedicated 60-ton class grain ships, because you're not going to stop along the way and sell grain and take on grain. These are tankers. These are wheat tankers. These are just giant balloons. And people look and say, oh, it's so flimsy and primitive. They're very flexible. You know why ships are riveted and not welded? Because so they'll be flexible, otherwise they'll snap. Huge 60-ton class grain barges. Fleets of them. Carthage was a giant shipyard. They're just building these things as fast as they can. That's not including all the smaller ships. Cases and cases of dried salted fish. You name it. You name it. At least 1,000 ships. So you've got a ton of Afghanistan tin headed west towards Cyprus with copper and a bunch of other stuff. You've got, I think it's 20 tons of Cornish tin going east along the southern route. You had Assyrian cities, old Akkadian cities, bringing copper and tin from both Afghanistan and Kupros and all, and then being hauled overland over that pass where Aleppo is today. There was a city there, and south of there is Ebla. They're hauling 10, 20, 30-ton shipments of metal over those hills, and then putting them on barges and floating them down the Tigris and Euphrates, and then to the factories. It became, Sumer and Akkad became the Detroit of the ancient world. If Ahab the Israelite did send 2,000 chariots to the battle of he bought them from a factory in Acadia or Assyria. Are you with me? The flow of goods. When you have trade on the scale of hauling around tons of metal, some of it is ore, some of it is refined ingots, some of it is alloy, some of it is bronze, some of it is copper, some of it is tin, some of it is ore. Bricks of lapis lazuli, bricks of hashish, bricks of opium, bricks, stone, barrels of wine, huge containers of Jeroboams of olive oil, factories making ceramic barrels for oil, ceramic barrels of oil. Factories. This was a massive economy. And apparently, I'll cut to the chase this a little bit. Apparently, there were these home flexible tribes of people who specialize in like hauling the metal over the mountains. And they start using metal as their currency reserve. And Hezekiah settles them down and makes them put all their money in the temple bank at Jerusalem. This is oversimplifying the story. This is the exact moment in time when the Etruscan king Tarquinio the Elder shows up on the banks of the Tiber and says, wash your hands, learn to count to 10, and get your asses to work. And puts Rome to work in exactly the same way. And turns the temple of Jupiter into the Roman State Reserve Bank. And then they promptly disappear. I will show you this goes back to at least 4,500 BC. Before that, we have maybe but 4,500 BC, the city of Ebla is the Rome, it's the New York, it's the Hong Kong. It's between the Minoans and the Sumerians, and that's Ebla. So Abram in the Bible, it's anachronistically says he makes a deal with the Hittite king, and then he's also a Chaldean. None of this makes sense until you realize it's a universal thing. So his sister cannot have children, so he has a son with her handmaid, Hagar. And he recognizes Ishmael as his son, gives him the name Ishmael. Under the Code of Hammurabi, Ishmael is the legal heir, period, whether Sarai has children later on or not. Under most laws of that whole epoch, if Sarah was his wife, she would have the superior. Her son would probably have the superior. This case is in here because it's a Gordian knot. It's in a law book. Who inherits? And this matters for thousands of years and down to this day. Who owns that land is still being argued over this case that's recorded in this book. Now the Muslims have a slightly different version. Hagar was never a slave. Hagar was Abram's lawful wife. So it's pretty obvious that the Ptolemies have tried to denigrate Ishmael's claim because they're trying to seize a physical territory. That's not what the kingdom of Israel is. I will go into more detail. This Ahab the Israelite, who sent 2,000 chariots and 10,000 infantry, he didn't lead them, he sent them, doesn't exist. This 2,000 chariots, there was no place to park. Where did you park 2,000 chariots? What did you feed those horses? What did you feed those men? I mean, there's just no reality there. Unless there is. And we'll get to that. We'll get to that. That basically Israel, at best, Israel was not in the Benjamin highlands at all. It was in the Judah highlands. It was it was Indian country. Occupying armies. The sergeant major would take the young, I think there's a story, a Roman soldier reminiscing his old centurion when he got there. Were they Roman? It's not a Philistine. But he takes them up into the foothills, real quiet, and then he makes a noise to let the sentries know that there's somebody there. And you hear this, the way the story goes, they heard this, it's a sling. And the centurion whispers, he tells them, you hear that? That's David. You stick your nose up over that rock, he'll shoot your eyes out. And that was true. The Romans and the Philistines really couldn't take 3 steps up those highlands. But that's not the Benjamin heights. That's the Judah heights. And that's where Israel was. Not that it was ever a kingdom. Not that it ever had a king. The only thing that distinguishes those people from their neighbors is the people up in the hills of Judah don't eat pork. Other than that, we can't tell the difference whatsoever. But we do know the Philistines lived on pork and bacon. You think you love pork? So, and we know Jewish law, it's perfectly okay to sell pork to Gentiles. It's not okay to eat it. Well, it's an export product. You don't eat your own stash, right? You save it for export. But this is interesting because it's supposed to be their national founding history. He's not staking out a fixed geological area. He's establishing a transnational network of high-placed, deeply connected professional merchants. And in order to do business with a rival kingdom, it has to be a kingdom. It can't just be some guys in a caravan camp. So we are representatives of the kingdom of Israel. But there is no Ishiraha. There is a Sarah. It's the same name. And we find more and more references, or it's becoming obvious that anomalies that were dug up in the past were not anomalies. There are plenty of queens of mercantile cities, not of big agricultural or pastoral or mining plantations. Queens of trading posts. And that sounds like Sarah. She's the link between them all. She's the queen of this. It's a virtual nation. So what about the heirs? All of a sudden, he marries his sister. This might appeal to an Egyptian pharaonic audience. You see how clever all of this is? But now they're claiming that the heirs of Ishmael, who are the Parthian party now. So now this book tries to denigrate the claims of Ishmael and his mother Hagar. But it's all about the money. It's all about the money. You will see their logo persist all down through history. You will see how, if there was ever a civilization that was ruled by queens, it was the transnational mercantile exchange company called Israel. The Queen of Sheba, Jezebel. These are very important women. And they're all over the Bible. There are more important women in the Bible than any other historical reference of any kind. Women dominate the Bible. And it's not about inheriting any particular fenced-in patch of dirt. It is about inheriting the earth. It's about inheriting the mortgage on the earth. It's all about the money. And it's all about this very powerful trading network that has its embassies all over the world. But interestingly enough, Abram's kingdom stops just outside Ebla. He moves from Haran into... And this stuff is anachronistic on purpose. It covers all times and all places. But you will see the queens of the... What's it called? The Karakum. You will see the queens of the Celtic trade with the Etruscans. The Etruscans trade with Celtic women managers. They used to think, well, the king was so important, he was buried someplace else. Now they begin to realize there is no king in these places. And they're all mercantile centers, not plantations or mines. That's important. How long have I been on? I know I've been on every day. Is that all I had to say? What time is it? It's 1 o'clock. I should get some work done. I think I'm going to turn this into a book. I think I can get AI to help me write this into a book. But it's the name. It's the moon. Oh, I know what I was going to... Here, look at this. This is what I'm talking about. This is exactly what I'm talking about. In the Tarot, it's the moon. Now, I'll probably show you the Rider-Waite Tarot because you've probably seen this one. I would not stake my life on this. This is talk about an anachronism. This is a 20th century attempt. Open image in new tab. There we go. Okay. Now, this has been, you notice Romulus and Remus, but this has been modernized. Forget the two dogs for a second. You see the crab? That's a freshwater crab. Of course, there are two towers, but this is Inanna, the moon mother goddess, also known as Mena in Egypt, I think. Inanna, Mena, blah, blah, blah. She is the Shakti of Etana. We will talk about how Etana flies up to the heavens to meet Inanna, and she transfers to him the power of creation. It's almost like men claiming the power of queenship instead of women trying to claim the power of kingship. We will talk about the link. That's Yahweh and his Asherah. We will talk about all that. But this little devil down here, the freshwater crab, what's interesting is the age of Aquarius, the age of Cancer was like this. This is exactly what Saudi Arabia was. This is what Arabia was like at the end of the Ice Age. Arabia was a floodplain that became a savanna that dried out into a desert. This is the age of Cancer in the Arabian Peninsula. This is right here. It's all underwater. And the freshwater crab, this is a very aggressive crab. This is a very annoying crab to have to live in. When you live in a mud hut, these things will come out and they get into your food like packs of bears. This is the age of Cancer. And this is the age when, and the funny thing is, at Göbekli Tepe or Haran Tepe, during the age of Cancer, the dominant image is the freshwater crab, and the other dominant images are the signs that would have been in the spring equinox during the age of Cancer. For what it's worth, I will get to that later. We will go back to 12,000 BC. We will track directly the growth of the syndicate since 10,000 to 12,000 BC, the tail end of the Ice Age, when Arabia was a floodplain. That little crab down there and its two symmetrical claws is very important. Two towers, two dogs, Romulus and Remus, Castor and Pollux, Morning Star and Evening Star, This all has everything to do with commerce. This might be the single oldest concept in even the Tarot. This might be something that survived all these, may go back to 12,000 BC. This may go back to the end of even before the end of the Ice Age. Anywho, is that it? What are you guys doing? Oh, a lot of this has to do, okay, so what we would call the Canaanites would say El. What we would call the Hebrews or Israelites would say Yah. The difference between Ishivra Yah and Ishivra El is just the difference between the two civilizations, you might say. And there are other instances of women being called El, being called Lord. There are other instances. And it isn't just that his wife's name is Sarah, which becomes Ishirael. His wife is his Shakti. His wife is his Anana. His wife is his Ishira, his Asherah. It's all right there. And that is their nation. So when you read it as literally true, and you realize that there's no metaphor, there's nothing mystical about any of it, except for the fact that, it was all one cosmos to them. It actually makes perfect sense. We all instinctively feel the same way. We all instinctively feel the same way. And just so you know, this is the logo of the syndicate right there. This is the logo of the syndicate right there. That's not a ribbon he holds in his beak. That's a snake with two heads. This image is not new. This image goes back some of the oldest art we've ever seen, and it's always around ancient prehistoric trading posts. And see, he has two claws, and in each claw sometimes he holds a bundle of arrows, and sometimes he holds an olive branch. The point being, there is something in the middle. Sometimes the thing in the middle, that square thing in the middle that looks like a shield or a crest or something. Sometimes Yahweh is writing in it. Sometimes Etana is writing in it. This sometimes is a halo. Sometimes he's carrying it. Sometimes he's sitting on it. Sometimes it's over his head. Sometimes it's an eagle. Sometimes it's a vulture. Sometimes the eagle has two heads. His wings are always outspread, just like Christ on the cross. At some point, he's holding something in his feet. Sometimes it's the glowing orb. Sometimes it's the two ends of the snake. You will see what it means. You will see what it means. And it pops up over and over and over and over again. As you shall see. The names pop up over. The Ebla archives from 4500 BC mention names like Abram and other names that are supposedly Hebrew names. Well, it's the thing is, 47, the short answer is it is two different linguists and historians have already noticed there are two different Old Testaments that have been woven together by the Septuagint editors. They are deliberately trying to combine two different kingdoms into one kingdom so they can lay claim to it. So you have two linguistic text types in the whole Old Testament. It's merging two. The story of Sarah and Abram is told in two different versions. There are two different versions of the creation. In one version of the creation, it's either the Yah or the El. In one version of the creation, God creates man first, and then he creates the animals and brings them to the man to name them. In another version, he creates the animals first and he creates man later. There are two different versions. Then they try to weave those two together for propaganda purposes. If you go down through history, we can tell the difference between the Yah and the El. You can see differences in the culture. But as far as between the Israelites of the Judah Highlands and their Canaanite neighbors, the only difference is the Israelites don't eat pork. From the archaeology, that's all we can see. Later on, you get Asherah poles. You get caduceii. some Mosaic, some not. Does that make any sense? Well, the way I would say it, Allard, is history is never about the past. It's always about the present. Always. There's something else. Oh, well, if you want to understand the history of the world, cherchez la femme. I'm Professor Thomas Henry Horan, asking you to please stay plugged in to the Stones Unturned podcast.
He reads everything.
Better bet your bippies he reads everything. Does he remember everything? Thanks, guys. I might see you tomorrow. I'm putting together a book. I might actually make this into a book. I might actually make it into something more interesting than a book.